Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michelle De La Uz, Executive Director of the Fifth Avenue Committee. Please welcome New York City Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer. Please welcome President of 32BJ Manny Pasreich. And please welcome Senator Andrew Gounardis. And now, please welcome the 57th Governor of the great state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you. It is so incredible to be in this space. It's called the Powerhouse. I feel the power. I feel the power and the history that surrounds this space and how brilliant people like Eric Schneider preserved a time in our city's history, maybe 80s and 90s, when people just encamped here in a nice way. Artists came here, they left signs of their artistry, but a reminder that this has always been an edgy and fascinating community. Amen to that. Amen to that. And I want to thank everyone who made this place possible. It is amazing that they just had the ribbon cutting just a few weeks ago. Is that right? Just a couple weeks ago? Sorry, I missed it. But it's really, really exciting to be here. And I wanted to acknowledge some individuals who are such an important part of my team as we're going to make some announcements here today. Ruth Ann Visnauskas is the Commissioner of Homes and Community Renewal, and I want to thank her for her vision and that can-do spirit that I embrace in my administration, that when there's a roadblock, you go over here and you zigzag around, right? So that's what we're very good at here. Also, Hope Knight, our Commissioner of Empire State Development. Thank her. Andrew Gounardis, thank you. This is your home district. You have your office literally out the window, so you're going to be very focused on watching the progress in this community. And I know if it slows down at all, you'll be all over us. So I know you want to see this done. Let's give a round of applause. Andrew Gounardis. Very proud to have representation from City Hall. Our mayor, we speak often, couldn't make it today, but we have in his place our New York City Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer. So thank you for being here as well. Michelle De La Uz, the Executive Director of the Fifth Avenue Committee. Michelle, thank you for being here. And I got the feeling that 32BJ was in the house with Manny Pasreich. Thank you. You always know when you're here. So there's so much history, as I said, here in this building, and it's been known as the Bat Cave, and it's really reborn as a hub for art production. So a rebirth has happened here, and in my opinion, this entire community is poised for rebirth as well. A rebirth that embraces my vision for housing. Because where some see neglect, I see neighborhoods. Where some see blight, I see beauty. Where some see pavement, I see parks. And where some see a hellhole, I see homes. So I am so excited to make a major announcement that's going to affect not just where we are today, but communities all across the state of New York. And I'm going to outline a series of executive actions that are necessary to jumpstart housing growth, including a new program that will create thousands of houses and homes for people right here in Gowanus. That's why today is so significant. And you'll remember that earlier this year, I submitted a bold plan to address New York's housing shortage. It is not just a shortage, it is a crisis. That has become one of the number one reasons people leave our state, because we ask them. Literally heard today as I was driving here, someone who works with my husband said, I couldn't find a place in New York. I love New York, but I have to go to Connecticut. I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't want to hear that. Because people do want to be here. But we've not kept up with the need for building housing for decades. And we're going to address that starting here today. We announced this bold plan. The legislature was not ready for it and would not commit at the time to the transformative change that New Yorkers so desperately need and deserve. But I still believe that we need a comprehensive solution to meet the scale of this housing crisis. And we're still pursuing it. We're still going to make progress. But that does not mean that we have to freeze in time, trapped by inertia. And anyone knows how I'm hardwired. That's not how I work. We will wait no longer. We press on. Because New Yorkers need houses built now. And we're going to start driving down the cost because guess what? It is basic supply and demand. You build more housing, the prices drop. And we have not been building and the prices are going up. And it's hurting our residents. So that's what we're talking about. And as a governor, I'm going to use all the tools that are at my disposal, starting right here in Gowanus. And as I mentioned, the powerhouse is part of a bigger evolution going on here. The city, and I praise the leaders who saw the vision here, have rezoned, back in 2021, over 80 blocks. That is a new start in life. And that'll clear the way for infrastructure improvements in waterfront parks and more than 8,500 housing units. But all those great plans, that great vision, were stopped dead in their tracks, and now too many people are worried that the housing projects will be scrapped for good. When the state legislature let the 421A tax incentive program expire, it effectively killed thousands of housing units right in this neighborhood. And they brought all this great momentum, all this energy, all this excitement to a screeching halt. We're not going to let that happen any longer. Not on my watch. So today we're going to launch a series of measures to bring these projects back to life. And for Gowanus, in this rezoned area, the projects that qualified for 421A under the deadline, we're going to have a program that mirrors the same incentives that the legislature stopped in both the benefits and in the requirements. It'll ensure that the housing units will finally get built in this neighborhood. So that'll be 7,500 new units on top of 1,000 permanently affordable housing units. And many of them will be affordable for people who want to live here. Think about the first-year teacher. They don't make great salaries. They want to live in the community where they're teaching. Someone who's a brand new police officer, firefighter, they're just starting out. They don't have big salaries. Our artists, our custodians, our janitors, our building superintendents. Anybody know any of them? Thought you did. And to qualify, the projects have to have at least 50 units. Let's go bigger. And those that are designated affordable must remain affordable. This will not change. But over the decade, in my vision, over the next decade, we'll witness a transformation that has always been talked about, dreamed of, always achievable. And it was put in motion years ago by then Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams and Council Member Brad Lander, who believed in this so much, and how disappointed they were to see this sidetracked after they put all this energy into it. And all that was stymied until now. And now we're going to finally unlock the full potential of this incredible neighborhood. It's not just about Gowanus. We'll get Gowanus underway. It's all about the entire state of New York. It's about encouraging housing production from Brookhaven to Brooklyn to Buffalo. And this is the possibility that lies right before us. But how are we going to get started? Well, first of all, it's one step at a time, and I'll be signing an executive order that'll now prioritize over $650 million in state discretionary funds. And instead of just giving it out to people, communities that apply, We are now going to be targeting that toward pro-housing communities. That is going to be signed in an executive order. We're changing how we're going to do business, and we're sending a very simple message that communities that do their part to build housing will get priorities for funding over those who will not. How do you like that? So here's how it's going to work. Our commissioner, we talked about this as we were coming down from Orange County, literally just drove in after trying to provide assistance for 1,000 homeowners that were devastated with last week's floods, so we've been on the road a little bit. She'll be releasing criteria that'll define what a pro-housing community should be. And all those communities will have to sign commitments. They'll have to pass resolutions that are binding them by law. And they will have to demonstrate how they will take concrete steps to support more housing. And things like streamlining permits and adopting rezonings, like we've done right here, because a lot of communities, they all could do this, and they just won't. That's part of our problem statewide. So also we're going to require communities to share data, share their housing and growth and zoning data, so we can identify and track their progress. Don't just tell me you're going to do it. I'm going to check up on you and make sure it gets done. So very simply, towns and cities and communities will have priority over those who do not. Now, what are we looking for? The same growth targets we talked about before. Let's talk about 3 years. I don't think it's asking too much to have 3% growth over 3 years. If you do the math, that's 1% a year. It's not that much. It's doable. Upstate communities, 1%. And pro-housing communities will get special consideration for major state initiatives like the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the New York Forward program, the Regional Council Capital Fund, the New York Main Street program, the New York Market Grants, the Long Island Momentum Fund, the Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund, the Public Transportation Fund. We have identified, because I said, go through our entire budget and find all the programs that right now we're just saying, okay, you qualify, you get it. This is how we drive change. If you want to participate and get this assistance from the state for all these great programs, you're going to have to demonstrate to us that you're fulfilling our desire, our need, our sense of urgency around building housing. I think that's going to work. And if you don't support more housing, you're just going to have a harder time accessing those funding streams. So we're committed. We are committed to making this happen, making progress. So in addition to today's executive order, I'm also signing another one that's calling on all of our state agencies, and I am looking everywhere. Identify all the abandoned, reusable, vacant properties that we can repurpose for housing. I don't have to wait for anybody else. This state has a lot of land, a lot of spaces that people would look at and go by like they never envision a community there or housing, whereas I do. I look at properties very differently. I see life, I see families, I see small businesses. And for example, we already have RFPs out for the former downstate correctional facility at Fishkill. The Javits Center, we just announced, Site K, is now available. Bring out the plans, bring out your vision for these, and it's going to include housing. And there's many, many more sites to come. That's how we're going to spend the next few weeks, identifying sites all over the state. And I'm directing all state and public authorities to take housing into account when they're adopting their policies and making sure that they're not doing anything in conflict with building more housing. And so when you build housing, sometimes we get a lot of complaints, well, the regulations are just so burdensome and so onerous, it's just not worth it. Now, we're going to always make sure we protect public health and safety, full stop. But I'm asking the DEC and Department of State to just, can you streamline a little bit? Do we have to really be the toughest state for doing all this? It's not necessary. And we can strike the right balance between promoting growth and protecting the environment and protecting the integrity of our communities. I know we can. So also we're going to be doubling down on data. Again, how do we measure success? Don't just tell me you're doing it. I want proof. So the more work we do on this, the more the public will be engaged. They'll see our progress, and access to that data is critical. So we're announcing a housing data dashboard where you can follow the progress in your hometown or across the state or anywhere you care to. We'll track housing growth and zoning trends across the state. Again, zoning is everything. We would not be here today if there was not a rezoning, because the intended use for land a century ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, life changes, right? Needs change, communities change, and you have to constantly be evolving and push yourselves. And I spent 14 years as a council member myself. I know a lot about zoning, and sometimes it's resisted because people say, well, we've always done it this way. Change is sometimes scary. Change unlocks the greatest potential in all of us and in our communities. We can no longer let zoning hold that back. The current zoning or the zoning that's intended sometimes to keep people out. Because we're better than that. So I'm excited about these possibilities, and I'm going to have a dashboard that's going to monitor zoning in this state, and are we making progress and opening up? And finally, I'll continue on the listening tour that I started. I sat down with Republican supervisors, 10 from Long Island a few months ago. I sat down with people in Westchester and businesses. I sat down with people in the city. I sat down with people in Brooklyn. I talk to anybody. More than talking, I like to listen. So I'm going to listen to people. But don't just tell me what you don't like, because that goes to my bad ear. As my dad always said, that's my bad ear. I can't hear you. If you want to get my good ear, tell me how you want to be part of solving the problem. Tell me your ideas and how we can work together. And I'll continue engaging the local partners, even in some of the communities that didn't think they were going to be sitting down with me. I'll be there. I'll show up. Because doing nothing is not an option any longer. And I want support from the local elected officials and the advocates. I need the advocates on my side. I need labor on my side to build the momentum as we head into the next legislative session. And I'm grateful to have partners like Senator Gounardis, who don't need to be led to the right conclusion because he knows, he understands what housing means to people, to have the dignity of a home that's yours. Maybe it's that first apartment. Just, you feel so proud, you finally get out, you got a little paycheck, you have an apartment. And maybe someday you're thinking about, gosh, can I ever own something? My parents used to live in a trailer park. They came a long way. There was always a progression of their success. Because then when I came a year later, my brother lived in a little trailer park. I came a year later, we lived in an upstairs flat, just tiny, right next to the steel plant. The pollution was everywhere. And then the little Cape Cod. And then just throughout life, my parents' success was measured in how much space they could put their family of 8 in. At first, it was really tight. I want that for everybody. That wasn't just for me, the granddaughter of poor immigrants. That's for our immigrants who are arriving today, people who've been here a long time. It's for families. They deserve that. Small businesses and our teachers and retail workers and construction, and these are the people who make our communities have the identity they have. They shouldn't be going to other states because they don't have a place to live here. I don't want them to take their talents elsewhere. And those other states are wide open. They're building just across the river. They're building more, and they're saying, come here, you can afford it. I'm going to stop that. I want us to be more affordable so we can be the great state we were intended to be. So in the meantime, I'm moving forward. I'm not waiting any longer. I'm not the type to throw up my hand and say, okay, we didn't get everything we wanted last time. We'll see you next year, legislature. It's a long way off. Too much time is wasting. That's why we're here today in the summer. Because as I said, people deserve more than that. I will not wait. This neighborhood will not wait. And the state of New York will not wait. So I'm going to do everything I can within my powers, using every tool I can find, the ones I'm announcing today and the ones we haven't even thought of yet. We're going to jumpstart housing now. And any legislator who wants to be part of the solution, who shares this vision and this sense of urgency, I believe you'll be rewarded by your constituents because they want you to step up on their behalf. Because at the end of the day, what kind of state do you want to be? That's what this comes down to. A state where young people can launch their careers, who want to launch their careers, can't even find a studio apartment. We want to be that kind of place? No. A place where the dream of home ownership is so elusive, you don't even think about it anymore. It's just maybe my next life. A state where kids are born and raised in a neighborhood. They want to raise their kids so they can be close to grandparents, and they have to say, I'm sorry, we have to leave. We know we don't want that. So what are we prepared to do about it? If we don't step up now and start taking bold action, who will? Who will? It was written that no governor has taken on housing since Nelson Rockefeller. You know why? Because it gets a little hot in the kitchen sometimes, right? Okay, I've been burned, but I'm still here. It's all right. Give and take. You build. You try again. You go another path. I can promise you this. As long as I'm the governor, I'm going to focus every single day on making New York State more desirable, more livable, and more affordable. Because the future rewards those who persevere. All of us are part of this movement. And on housing, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you. Go forth and talk about how we are changing the world starting right here in Gowanus. Thank you very much. I want to invite someone up, our great Senator Senator Gounardis, who has been a champion for this project. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Governor Hochul, for your leadership, for your words, for coming to Brooklyn, for coming to my district. And she's right. I can see from my district office window, I can see this building where we are currently here right now. This is the heart of my district, and I welcome the governor. I welcome all of you to be here. Affordable housing is always a winning issue. Full stop. Building affordable housing, providing affordable housing for everyone is always a winning issue. There's no questions about it. And the depth of our housing crisis is so deep and so dire, we have to take urgent action. We do need a comprehensive approach, a legislative approach that has real affordability. The 421A rezoning here in Gowanus is a great example of the full potential of what 421A always could have and should have been. Real, deep affordability so that people making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, the people who are working in these buildings, the people who are servicing these buildings, the people who pick up the garbage in these buildings, who are at crossing guards in front of these buildings, who are in this neighborhood working these service jobs, are able to live in the same housing that they are servicing. That is the dream of what 421A could have been and should have been, and what Gowanus realized, what the Gowanus rezoning realized, the full potential of that program. We do need a more comprehensive approach that does exactly what the Gowanus rezoning has done and what the governor's proposal today will do to allow us to unlock 3,000 units of deeply affordable housing here in this community with the type of financial stability that residents in this neighborhood need without any displacement to other neighborhood tenants. That is a win, win, win across the board. And I'm very thankful to the governor for her leadership on this and seeing this vision and seeing this through. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to housing. There's no one single solution. We're not going to pass a bill next year and all of a sudden sprout up from the gardens 800,000 units. We have to put a framework in place, but it's going to be 50 units here, 100 units here, a plan for 3,000 units here, a plan for 2,000 units there, and that is how, neighborhood by neighborhood, city by city, across the entire state, we're going to realize this goal to make sure that every single New Yorker can be housed. And it starts right here in Gowanus. It starts right here in the heart of the 26th district, and so I'm so thankful that we're able to see these projects through to fruition. There's no reason why, in this day and age, with that crisis upon us, as deep as it is, that we can walk away from units that are in the ground, ready to be built, and that have gotten approval by the local city council member, that have been approved by the entire city council, that have been signed into law by the mayor. We can't walk away from a deal like that when it's already been agreed to, when it's already done. That is why today is so significant, and it's just the start. We have a lot more work to do, and my full commitment to everyone in this room that I represent, and to all of our stakeholders here, and all of our friends, and to the governor, I am now a housing legislator, a pro-housing legislator. We need to build and build everywhere, because that's the only way we're going to get out of this crisis. We need the deep affordability protections. We need the labor protections. And yes, we need the tenant protections. And all of those things will come together in a comprehensive approach, and that's how we're going to do this. But let's today celebrate the win in Gowanus. Let's celebrate the win for these 3,000 units and for the thousands of families that are going to benefit and have a roof over their heads once these projects are completed. So again, thank you to Governor Hochul, your entire team, for being here, for making this happen. And I do have to commend the governor's staff, because from the moment I took this district in January, maybe every week, I called your staff and said, hey, Gowanus. Hey, Gowanus. Hey, don't forget Gowanus. Hey, don't forget Gowanus. Did you forget about Gowanus? Don't forget about Gowanus. And your staff, to their credit, never did. And so I'm glad that you chose this location to make your big announcement then. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you all a great partner that I've had the privilege of working with in my time in the legislature, and someone who represents thousands and thousands of working people across this state and across this region. And that, of course, is Manny Pasrich, the president of the mighty 32 BJ. Manny?
Thank you, Senator. You have been an incredible friend to us on healthcare, on housing, and a great leader. And it's a real honor for me to be here today, because this issue is central to New Yorkers. We need to build, we need to increase our housing stock, we need to increase the affordable housing stock in the city and across the state. And we're going to need both bold, big ideas, and we're going to need practical solutions. And I salute the governor, because she's doing both today. And that's something that we need in this state. I thank you for that. And I really today, these practical solutions that are going to get, as you said, as the senator said, are going to get thousands and thousands of housing units built, are going to get affordable units built. That's what's important. The Gowanus rezoning is going to build, again, thousands and thousands of units. It's going to use all the best parts of the 421A program, which hasn't been renewed, but the governor's taking those important elements and putting them to use. It's going to create good union jobs, and that's another thing that is so important. We have a lot of 32 BJ members here. Is 32 BJ in the House? And when I talk to our members, this is what they say. They say, first, we need good jobs. We need good jobs that support families. We need good jobs with health insurance. And this development is going to do that, and that we are very thankful for, and it's an incredibly important part of this development. But our members also have to live in this city. And that's the other thing that we constantly hear from our members is, how am I going to live in this city? How am I going to afford to live in this city? And I will say many of our members live in 421A affordable units, and that's been an incredibly important part of the solution going forward. But too many of our members don't, and they can't find those solutions. And as the governor said, we have members living in New Jersey, we have members living in Connecticut, we have members living in Pennsylvania, because they're looking to make affordable, and that's not something that's acceptable. So the governor has taken the best parts. She's taken all the successful things that we've done in the past. She's taken the successful parts of 421A. She's creating a model for today and a model for the future. She's creating a model that's going to create good jobs, create more housing stock, and create affordable housing. And that's what we need to do. That's a model, as the governor said, that we need to take to the statewide, bring back to the legislature, and see if we can find solutions that'll work not just here in the Gowanus rezoning, but across the entire state. And we're hopeful that this practical solution today is going to lead to that. So thank you, Governor. Thank you to the Empire State Development Corporation as a key partner in this. We're going to do this. We're going to do more things like this, and we're going to be standing by you when we do these things to create more jobs, more good housing,
you have announced today. I want to make sure that you know that the mayor and his entire administration are in common cause with you and your colleagues as we collectively try to tackle the housing crisis that has remained chronic and dire for far too long. The Gowanus rezoning area in particular was really one of the city's landmark opportunities to create new housing. And Senator Gounardis, I love what you said, a pro-housing legislator. That is music to my ears. May your ranks multiply in the weeks and years ahead. But certainly the measures announced today really do exemplify the type of work that we all have to take to address the housing deficit in all 5 boroughs. The type of work that we have to do to fortify our legacy as a city and as a state built by and for working people. And to do that work, we have to start with the housing crisis. Because the truth is, as the governor mentioned, we have come up short as a city and as a region for far too long in addressing the shortage of affordable housing with the type of urgency and creativity, and not just the crisis deserves, but that New Yorkers deserve. And that's why the Adams administration has been clear, the mayor has been clear from day one, that every community has a responsibility to build quality homes and to welcome new neighbors, and that the well-housed amongst us do not have the right to deny that same opportunity for others. And so that's why just a few months ago, when we talked about our moonshot goal of 500,000 to complement, of course, the governor's goal of 800,000 new homes over the course of the next decade, we knew that we had to use tools that we had in order to advance this work. We needed to build faster, we need to build everywhere, and we need to build together. Because make no mistake, the city cannot do this alone. And as aggressive and as bold as our plans are, we know that we need the partnership and action from our partners in the state government and the state legislature. And that is why we are so grateful for the governor's commitment to creating more housing opportunities. Now, every community, of course, has to do its part. Communities like this one, a relatively higher income community, but this is true for every borough of this city and every community across the state. And so what we ask is for our colleagues at various levels of government to also do that part, to do their part. Because it's really that type of courage and that type of cooperation and participation that's going to really spell the difference for families in the city and in the state, and really spell the difference between whether a family pays the rent or has enough to buy food, whether they can keep a roof over their heads or where they pay for medicine that they truly need. These are unfathomable choices that we ask families in this city and in this state to make. And so I thank the governor for saying it's time to end that. It is time to take action. It is time to stop the hand-wringing, the finger-pointing, the pearl-clutching on these issues that affect so many. And so thank you again for making sure that we all understand that what we do now matters urgently. But you know what matters even more? It is the common New York identity that we all share. And so I have no doubt that working together, we will make a real difference in not just tackling the housing crisis, but really uplifting families in all corners of this city and state. Thank you very much. And it is now my great honor to introduce a friend, an extraordinary local leader, the executive director of the Fifth Avenue Committee, Michelle Delaus.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Torres Springer. It is an honor to share the stage with all of you here today. And I especially want to thank Governor Hochul for your leadership to tackle the housing crisis that we have here in New York State, and in particular coming to Gowanus to make this important announcement. The governor's actions today, along with the actions that are forthcoming from our two commissioners here, Commissioner Ruth Ann Visnauskas and President of ESD Hope Knight, underscore the urgency that exists to take action on multiple fronts to ensure that New York State can grow equitably and inclusively. You know, recent headlines in just the last few days about housing have been about how zoning drives educational inequality, about the fact that Brooklyn and Queens are still seeing record high median rents, about the impact of rising interest rates on mortgage rates, about the spike in homelessness in cities across the United States not slowing down, and the fact that East Coast mayors are calling for more office to apartment conversions. All of these things underscore the fact that it isn't just New York State that's facing a housing and affordability crisis, but it's an issue for the United States as a whole. They underscore the range of challenges that exist when we don't tackle our need for inclusive growth in a holistic manner that balances local and broader needs with equity at the center of the solutions. Here in Gowanus in November 2021, after about a decade of community discussion about the future of the neighborhood, the New York City Council, with local council members Lander and Levin's leadership and the tireless advocacy of the Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice, and many other advocates who are here today, approved the rezoning of the area. As the governor shared, the rezoning paved the way for 8,500 new apartments, including 3,000 affordable homes. The Gowanus is the first ever to have a community-controlled oversight task force, jointly overseeing with our current council members, Hanif and Ressler, the implementation of more than 50 commitments from the City of New York. Importantly, 2,000 out of the 3,000 affordable units in Gowanus will be created using the city's mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH program, and they are deeply and permanently affordable. Those projects also include 18 acres of publicly accessible open space, new open space, affordable artist spaces, and will result in dozens of brownfields being cleaned up. Several of the projects in the Gowanus have been at risk due to the 421A June 2026 construction completion deadline and need more time to complete construction for a variety of reasons outside of the developer's control. Governor Hochul's executive action will facilitate many projects in Gowanus moving forward that have MIH units and are stalled. The governor's actions today are critical, yet they're only a piece of what needs to happen in New York State to address our housing crisis. We need the state legislature to act on a comprehensive set of housing and tenant protection bills. Fifth Avenue Committee and local stakeholders in Gowanus and beyond look forward to working with the governor and this legislature to ensure that we can have inclusive and equitable growth across the state. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much to the governor and her team.
That concludes our program. Please remain seated as the executive order is signed.
Executive order is signed.